Hello and welcome to an episode of Moving Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Zoe Taylor, founding of Moving Medicine Partners. So excited to be here today to help all of these relocating physician families navigate what it means to move, the nuances that are a little special to you, and have experts that have lived this life on repeat here to help you. And who better than our own Lisa Alemi? She is a physician spouse, has moved countless times, and has put all of this experience into use with Move Mama Move. And so, Lisa, thank you for joining us today. I can't wait to hear more about what you've created, what you're doing to help these physician families move, and how they can utilize it. How are you?
Thank you, Zoe. I'm great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate this opportunity to meet and share resources to help other
Yeah.
physician families.
I mean, that's what we're here for. Lisa is not a real estate agent like so many guests that are on this show, but I feel at this point she should be, as many houses as she's bought and sold and has relocated. Lisa, tell me about your journey. Let's start with medicine. What specialty is
Yeah.
your spouse? When did you guys meet? And how many times have you moved?
Yes. My husband is a general surgeon, and we met in San Francisco when he was in residency. And we were in like year 2 of 7 of residency, and he was doing research. And so his schedule was like super light. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I don't know what people are talking about residency being difficult. And then 2 years into our relationship, he got back into clinic work. And I was like, holy moly, this is like a different beast.
False
But
sense of security for sure.
100%, 100%. I was like, I'm glad I had those 2 years to like really get to know him and not have to get to know him during trauma rotation, coming out of research or whatnot. So we lived in San Francisco for a couple years, and then we moved to Seattle for fellowship for 1 year. And then we moved to Kansas City, and we were there for 4 years before relocating to LA, where we've been for the last 8. So gosh, it's been like so long. We've been done with training for like 10 years. 12 years.
How was the shock of going like West Coast life to as Midwest as you could possibly imagine?
Yeah. I'm from the Midwest originally. And so when he was looking for a job, we had gotten the opportunity to interview in Kansas City. And I was like, I haven't been back to the Midwest to live there for 5, 6 years. Like, let's go back. Let's try it out and see. There were pros and cons. Definitely like a slower pace of life. The cost of living was like insane. It was so low. Like we were neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
With
San
Travis
Francisco and
Kelce.
Seattle to Kansas City. That's
Yeah.
bonkers of a
Yeah.
difference of cost of living.
Yeah. It was like our penthouse in Kansas City was cheaper than our apartment in San Francisco in like a neighborhood with like a billion other houses. We had Travis Kelce as our neighbor in our apartment. Like it was like very weird. And we were like, this
Like
is so
the
strange.
Travis Kelce?
Yeah, like Taylor Swift's fiance, Travis Kelce. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a nice guy. Yeah, he was very friendly. And so we always joke with our son because when we were moving out on moving day, we ran into him and we were like, can we get a picture? This feels like so like shameful and like we shouldn't do this. But like we want our son to know that like one time we were cool and lived in like cool places. And so we have a picture of him holding our son. And my son is like the biggest fan of him and like looks back at that picture and is like,
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
I love that. That's like a total other side quest story that we could get into.
Yeah.
But that is kind of a fun thing about like living in St. Louis and Kansas City. Like St. Louis, I lived in an apartment building that was across the hall from Matt Adams, which this was like a couple of years after we won the World Series in 2011. So it was like really cool. It was a really cool building to live in downtown.
Yeah.
Super affordable. And you're like next to all the MLB players.
Right.
It was so much fun. So
Yeah.
I've lived that life. I understand the excitement.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we enjoyed Kansas City in a sense of everything felt like you could breathe a little bit. But we were still missing like the diversity that I think we wanted our children to grow up in. And we wanted more like outdoor adventure. There wasn't a lot to do outside. We came, coming from Seattle where we would drive 20 minutes and be in the mountains and we'd be hiking every weekend, to Kansas City was just a very big shock for us. And we have family in California. And so we realized like the rest of our family is like in the Midwest and Texas. So we were still like a plane ride away from everyone, even though we were in the Midwest. So we were like, you know what? We might as well really enjoy where we live. We loved California. I love the ocean. I grew up on Lake Michigan, and so it felt like an ocean. And so seeing the ocean here is just very nostalgic and healing. I think it was important for us to get back to the West Coast. And so that kind of prompted our decision to move back this way.
I love that. So you went from Michigan to San Francisco to Seattle to Kansas City, and now you're in LA. Did each of those moves teach you something? Or I know that you've accumulated all this knowledge from all of these big moves and shifts that you've
Mm-hmm.
had. And for those of you listening, I mentioned Move Mama Move. Really, what she's created is this intense, very detailed organizing guide to help you move. If you are someone that likes lists and checklists and to-do lists and all of the things that you need to consider and maybe that you haven't considered when you're moving, she's compiled it into this one beautiful book. What would you call guide?
Yeah.
As a resource
Planner.
for you
Yeah.
whenever you move. And so I would love to hear how each of those moves kind of accumulated into what has now become Move Mama Move for you.
Yeah. I moved a number of times even before meeting my husband throughout grad school for different internships and rotations. And then my first adult big move was to San Francisco. And I remember showing up with this like giant moving truck with my mom at like 5 p.m. on like a Wednesday. And like, I did not plan at all what was going to happen. And we were walking the street and everyone was angry with us. I just needed to like unload these boxes, and I had some friends meet me there and we got pizza. And I think I was so traumatized from it that like each move after that, I was like, okay, I need to have a plan because I want my home, the place I live, I want it to feel comfortable and safe and relaxing. And I feel like I started off with this like super hyper stressful event. And I think moving can do that when we don't plan accordingly. So every move after that, I just was always making lists. And then the real catalyst for Move Mama Move was after our first was born. He was like 6 months old and we were moving cross country here to LA. And I was like, I just need someone to like give me some lists and I just need to like check things off because I'm not sleeping through the night. I have mom brain. I'm just experiencing this for the first time and I'm forgetting everything. And I don't know who I contacted or when I contacted them. And I was looking for stuff online and I couldn't find anything that was like comprehensive enough for how my brain worked. I say like recovering type A, like after 3 kids, I'm like, man, whatever, stuff happens.
Type A
But
with mom brain, like you can't
yeah,
quite get all of the control back. Like there's pieces that
right,
just float away before you can grab onto it.
right. You hang on to what you can and let go of the
Yeah.
rest. And so
Yeah.
I created a planner because I was like, this is how my brain works. And I like checklists. I like knowing like when do I need to get stuff done by when? Because I was missing deadlines with like switching our address over or reaching out to moving companies. And I created a section with like questions to ask the moving company because I was so nervous to give everything I owned to this company and they were going to move it and hopefully show up at my new place with everything intact. And so I did a ton of research on how to interview the right company. We've thankfully had wonderful moves since I created this guide because I'm following the list. My first big move was to San Francisco from the Midwest after grad school. And it was just me and my mom in a moving truck. And I showed up in San Francisco at like 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. And this giant moving truck that I had no business renting, even though I thought I needed it, took up the whole street and was blocking traffic. And people were so angry with me. And I was trying to unload boxes as quick as possible. And it was just a super stressful evening because I didn't plan. I didn't even plan for like when I was going to show up in San Francisco. Like had I thought this through, it would not have been at 5 o'clock in the middle of the
Rush
city,
hour, tiny
downtown.
streets. Like San Francisco does not have wide streets. Like they're very
No.
narrow. Then you're entering your home for the first time with like chaos and energy that's just like,
Yeah. And it felt like that the whole time I lived there. Like there just was like this bad energy. And so I remember thinking every move from then on, I was going to be super organized. I was going to keep things planned better so that I could go into my next home and feel calmness and peace and rest. And I really do think that like the energy from the move carries over to the energy into the house afterwards. And so with each move after that, I was making lists and I was keeping track of everything, but everything was like in a folder or on my phone or on the back of a receipt tucked in like my wallet or something. I really came up with the idea of the moving planner after my first was born because One, I was tired. I had been not sleeping through the night. I was new to this whole mom brain, like things are very flighty and forgetful. And I was losing papers and whatnot. So I went online and I was like, I want a moving planner. I want someone to like tell me what I need to do. And I couldn't find anything that felt like it was checking all the boxes, no pun intended, for like the things I needed for the move. And so I was like, I'm just going to create one. And so I sat down and I thought through all the steps of the move. And I was very diligent about what were the hard parts, what were the parts I wish I would have done differently, and ironed it all out. And then created the moving planner from there.
No, I've seen some checklists and I'm like, okay, like it's got like packing, like instructions on like how to best pack. And then I've also seen checklists, it's like, okay, like how to pick a mover. And then I've seen checklists like, don't forget to, like move all the information over regarding your contacts, like your physicians, and you need to like change doctors and change addresses for certain things. There's different checklists, but I've never found like a comprehensive one that brings it all
Mhm.
together until I found you.
Yeah, I've covered like every topic of what to pack in like the box that you take with you. There are things that you should never give a mover, passports, expensive jewelry, electronics. So I have like a list of what to pack. I call it the do not move box. Like movers do not touch this box. You keep it in your sight the whole time. You keep it tucked away so it doesn't end up on a moving truck. I have checklists like 90 days out from the move. What do you do? 60 days out, 30 days out, 2 weeks out, to keep everyone on track. Because a lot of times you get to like the last 2 weeks and you're like, oh, shoot, I don't have anyone to watch the kids while we're moving and it's going to be pure chaos. Or I haven't thought about changing my address because I need a new address in order to establish utilities and whatnot. So it really takes all the guesswork out of moving to make it like as streamlined as possible.
Do you have like a post moving checklist too? Like license plates registration and driver's license
Yes.
and like
Yep.
all of that comes like
Yeah.
post moving. Show us your book.
Yeah. So I
It's so
have this was
beautiful
like the
too.
original relocation planner, and it has all the checklists of everything you would need, even like an inventory tracker. Like we recently moved and I tabbed some things. I wrote down everything that we packed and what was in each box, what room it should go in. And then I checked it off as the movers put it in the truck so that I knew it got out of the house. And then when it came back in, I checked it off as they were bringing it into the new house. And that helped me prioritize what I was unpacking. I didn't need the box of board games, for instance, but I did really need like the kitchen dishes and the kitchen glasses so that we could have a meal that first night. And that was super helpful. I have like a moving day timeline that I had you fill out, and it's the schedule that you want for moving day. It's things to pack in your car because there's like the do not move box, or there's other things you need to keep in your car. And I had you tear out one version's for you, one version's for the movers. You tear out the version for the movers and you give it to them. It has your new address, so there's no confusion of where they should be going. It has like when you're expecting them to be there, and it just really clears space for you and the movers to have like a very clear line of communication.
I love that. Have you ever had a horror story? Like this is like side quest or whatever. I've just heard them
Mm-hmm.
and seen it happen, but like where movers get side quest distracted and don't show up when they're supposed to. I'm just gonna like tell you, I heard this horrible story where like cross country move, everything was in like a pod or a U-Haul. Movers were driving cross country. And apparently, while they were coming across the country, they wanted to like stop in and see their wife or family or something. And so like they just stopped for a day or two in this town and they were calling and they're like, oh, we broke down in XYZ area and like, oh, like we're running behind. And like they were like lying about where they were. And the people that had hired them knew because they put an air tag in a box
That's so smart.
in the moving truck. And they were like calling the company, like, they're telling us that they're in Chicago broken down, but I can see that they're in Kansas City at some random house in a subdivision, like with my stuff. I always recommend for all of my families moving cross country, like put an air tag in a couple of the
Yes.
boxes on the moving truck so that you can keep track of where you're at. And one, for timing, so you kind of approximately know, like, okay, they're getting close, like whatever. But also because, not that it's common, but it can happen that like drivers can take side quests.
Yes. Yeah. Thankfully, I've never had something so traumatic like that. But there's just little things you don't realize until you hire movers. Like they might put your stuff on a truck and then move your stuff to another truck later on. And so there's like 2 points of transfer, which is a little unnerving when you have maybe fragile items or you're worried
Yes.
about items making it. Or you'll have movers that like, if they're hourly, sometimes they take a long time. I'm a big fan of getting like a binding estimate from a moving company, which means like, let's say they quote $5,000. That means at the end of the day, they will not charge you more than $5,000, no matter what happens. That's really important. And typically those are more common with like long distance moves versus short distance moves, but everything's negotiable because you just don't know if they're going to charge you for like a long carry or stairs or like early start or whatnot. Like being very clear with what your expectations are from the moving company is so important.
So you think that like the binding rate is one of the most important aspects. Is there any other fine print that you need to consider? Like I know that like insurance is a big deal, like what they'll cover in
Yes.
regards to like broken items, because I have had companies that were like, we're so sorry, here's a reimbursement for the exact item that we found on Wayfair that matches like whatever it is that we broke. And then I've had some that are like, not our problem. And then like, don't do anything. And it's crazy town. I mean, there's so many moving companies and the fine print is so fine. Those contracts are so long. Like, do you
Yeah,
have a list of questions and where you
I
can write
do.
in like, hey, I'm going to ask
Yes.
4 different moving companies all these questions, and then I can have like side by side pages of all their answers so that I know like which one's going to be the best option for me.
Yeah, I actually have, it's like 3 pages of questions to ask the moving company. And it feels like, oh my gosh, I don't want to sit and ask 30 questions. I want you to sit and ask 30 questions. I want you to vet these people because I want them
So
to
important.
know that you're serious. Because a lot of people just call and say, hey, I need movers on like Tuesday the 14th at 7 a.m. How much will it be? And there's so many things to think about. There's things about like, will they be packing? Will they be loading? Will they be unloading? Will they be unpacking? Is there
Reassembling
an
furniture,
elevator?
disassembling furniture.
Yes. Or do you need a parking permit to put the moving truck on the street? That was a big thing when we were in San Francisco and Seattle, even in Kansas City. We had to reserve the loading dock in the apartment complex. So I think there's like 35 to 40 questions to ask the moving company. And you'll know, like, once you start asking these questions, you're going to get the vibe. Okay. Are these people just checking boxes and saying yes to whatever? Or are they like really showing up and being detailed? We found a company that was like super detailed and answered all my questions. I was like, hey, it's me again. I have more questions and I want people to ask the questions. I want them to be very thorough. This typically is a very expensive venture. And so you don't want to be willy-nilly with one, the cost of the move, but then all of your belongings and replacing all of that is time consuming, expensive, emotionally taxing. And so getting the right moving company is like super important.
Contractually, do they sometimes provide windows? Like, we'll either show up on this day or that day. Sometimes, if you do have friends that are meeting you to unload, if they don't, because sometimes you like hire movers and they'll drive the truck from point A to point B, but at point B, they don't have people necessarily to unload the truck for you when you get there. That's almost like a separate thing that sometimes you
Yeah.
have to hire. And so then you're, negotiating a contract with now this new subcontractor or third party person that you have unloading and putting in your house and assembling your furniture. But if you're using friends or whatever, and there's this like big, wide, vague window for an arrival time, like you need to make sure like we know when they're coming, we know when our friends need to be there. There's just
Yeah.
so many variables. I think like picking out a moving company is, I'm a real estate agent and I've moved a few times in the past couple of years, and just locally, like each move was just like a mile from the other one. And one time I did it myself and I'm like, I'll never ever do that again. Like, I'm a grown woman. I do not need to do this myself anymore. I don't know why I put myself through that. So then like a few months later when I moved again, I'm like, take my money. Like, it is so well spent. Like,
Right.
I need someone to move for me. And it was overwhelming trying to pick a reputable company that did the loading and the unloading that I knew was going to protect me. Have you found that like local moves, short moves are easier or harder than like cross country moves, or is it all kind of the same?
I feel like local moves are a little easier because you're using the same company from start to finish. Where long distance moves, you're hiring a company that then has to contract out typically on the other end, on the delivery side. Let's say when we were in Kansas City, the people that loaded our truck were not the people that unloaded our truck in LA. And it was technically a different company. I think we used United, but it was like Bob's United in Kansas City that loaded us and like Frank's United in LA that unloaded us. Now, thankfully, both companies were great, but we didn't have a say in who the unloading company was going to be. And
Contractually,
so
did you sign two contracts, or was it one that
it
just
was
kind of like umbrellaed the other one?
it was one where like our Kansas City moving company like took on the risk essentially of hiring this third party. And that was something I didn't even realize until I was like, wait a minute, like my point of contact now is different. And so that was something that was a little surprising.
No, that makes sense. It like gives me anxiety just think about it. This is an anxiety-free episode. The whole point of this is that like we have the resources and tools so
Yeah.
that like if this is causing you anxiety because you didn't realize how stressful like these decisions were and how nuanced these companies are, like the point of Move Mama Move is that like we've been there, we've done that, we've made the mistakes and learned from them,
Yeah.
and this resource has been created for you. You know, the guesswork is gone. You have all these questions, you have all these answers. You can vet this for yourself and find someone reputable and safe with the right kind of terms that are going to protect you during this move. What do you think were some of the most surprising things when you were moving? You said that you learned as you went every move, you created new checklists. Like, what were the most jarring ones? Was it like after you had your baby and moved? Do you have pets? Like, did those cause conflict in moving ever? Like, what variables? It's kind of like real estate. Every transaction is different. I do 40 transactions a year. You know, I've been doing this for a while, and still, like, every transaction's, it's like they're never the same. No two moves are the same. No two transactions are the same. So, like, what are some of the variables that you've met that were like, oh, that's a new one and very surprising?
Yeah. So we've had like movers show up and be surprised about the number of stairs that they'd have to go up or whatnot, where we've been like extremely honest, sent pictures, been like, this is the expectation. That kind of threw me for a loop a little bit because I was expecting them to come prepared and ready for that. I
Is it
remember
like the
we
episode of
lost.
Friends when Ross is like, pivot, because he couldn't fit up the staircase? Pivot.
We've had moving company lose stuff. And so you're kind of
Ugh.
like, what do I do when that happens? And you had touched on this before where like sometimes your renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance will cover the cost. And I recommend keeping those during the moves because the reimbursement rate, I think, is like 60 cents on the pound. That was what it was last time we moved. I can imagine it's probably even less than that now, which is nothing. Like if you think about like TVs these days are like 30 pounds, 50
Yeah, they're
pounds.
so lightweight.
That's $25, for a replacement TV. Like that's
Yeah,
not
and
going
the
to
more
be
expensive they are, the lighter they are. It's like counterintuitive. Like there's more
right.
technology, it weighs less.
Right. So
Mm.
things like that were a little overwhelming or knowing like I started packing like a open this box first box. That was after I had my firstborn because I realized I need to have his space set up. Like we need to be able to show up and he's going to nap. He's 7 months old. We can't just be on the fly necessarily if I don't have at least like a pack and play or stroller or something like readily accessible for him to like sleep in or
Yeah.
like bath towels or initial cleaning supplies, things to open first so that you can like get settled into the house as quick as possible.
I've seen like a lot of different methods and I've tried different methods. Like, do you have like a color system, a number system? How
Mm-hmm.
do you coordinate like how you disseminate where the boxes go, which rooms they go in, and then like what priority of opening? Because I want you to share and then I'm going to share because I've had some fun experiences with this.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I keep track in the inventory list, I write down everything that's in the box within reason, a generalized list. And then I give the box a number and I write the number on all four sides of the box and the top of the box. And then I have a color coded sticker designated for each room in the new house. And then when we get to the new house, I put labels on all the doors so they know what like bedroom number 2 is, bedroom number 3, office, so that when people are bringing boxes in, they know exactly where they go. And then I start looking, I usually start in the kitchen. That's kind of like my first thing because I'm like, we can figure out bedroom and all the
We
other
need to
stuff
eat.
later. We need to eat and people are going to be hungry and tired and whatever. So I start with basic things in the kitchen and I look at all the kitchen boxes and I say like, okay, I'll circle the ones that I'm like, okay, these need to get done today. And then I'll go through like, okay, bedroom stuff. Like we're going to need sheets and pillows. I need to get those things out. And so I'll usually go that route and keep going back to my list and figuring out what feels right for unpacking on each day. Now, one time we planned a birthday party for my son, like 2 weeks after we moved, and we hosted it in our house. And that actually like forced us to unpack everything.
I love hosting parties because my house
Yeah.
gets so clean and
Yeah.
like rooms that I have put off for like ages somehow miraculously like I'm like, "Oh, everything suddenly found a place even though I've been
Yes.
struggling for months." I love
Yeah.
twice a year minimum hosting big parties in my home
Yes.
because it's motivating.
Forces you. So yeah, we unpacked everything super fast. And we're like, okay, now we don't have to deal with that anymore. That would just rip the Band-Aid off. And
I love that. I think that I've become a well enough oiled machine that I've got this a similar system in place. However, I will say this one time. So one time I moved with a color coding system. I had my daughter, Ellen. She won yet? I think she was right around one. She was walking. I know she was walking. I don't remember what, but I had color coded these boxes with like tape on them and like just a special piece of tape on each box that like designated which room it was going to go into or which priority it was. And that little lovely stinker came in after everything was packed and ripped all the colored pieces of tape off.
that's
I was like,
one.
you are such a toddler. Like, that is such a toddler thing to do. I was like, well, the effort was there. When
Yeah.
I moved last year into the home that I'm in currently, I think that that was when I had the most well-oiled machine. It's amazing because when you start packing early, those boxes are fours. Those are not priorities. If you don't need them month, 2, 3 months in advance, those are going to be the last things that you unpack. So those were really easy to set
Yep.
in a corner, put a four on. Each of my kids had their own duct tape color that they got to pick out. So Ellen's was pink and
Oh,
Lexi's was teal and Oscar's was, navy blue and mine was green. So all of our bedrooms had a designated color. I actually took a 2D floor print of the home that I was buying. So I had like the blueprint of the home and I had it taped on the front door and I had each room colored. The kitchen was pink, the basement was red. And so I had
yep.
a blueprint of my home that the movers had that was taped on the front door. And then same thing, put the color on each door individually. So as the movers were coming in, they could look at the front door map, be like, okay, like this bedroom's over here. And then they see it and they're like, okay, this bedroom is this color. And so the boxes were really easy to carry into that room. And then, like you said, they have a number of like 1, 2, 3, 4. One is the very last thing that we packed. The day before the movers came, those sheets were folded up and cleaned and put in a box with my kids' snugglies, their pillows, their favorite night light. The
Yeah.
day that we moved in, that's the first thing that we unpacked so that their bed and their safety items were there. You know what I mean? Like those things were number one priority to get unpacked. So I feel like I've kind of like same thing, narrowed it down to the same process more or less of organizing by room and organizing priority. And that color coded
Mhm.
system for the movers, I feel like helped tremendously. And me not
Mhm.
having to stand at the door and be like, this one goes there and this one goes there and this one goes there. It was just common sense. Like it was so easy for them to be able to put it. And then it was so much less stress on me to be coordinating that day. Like it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
Even the furniture and stuff that we packed up, I would find a way to put tape on the bed or whatever it is that they were moving. And I'm like, this goes to their room. And I didn't have to say it. The color was on there. They knew that that bed got assembled in that room. So
Yeah.
100% agree. And I love that that is how you're doing it in the guide. Because after all of my experience, other than my kid ripping off my color coordinated system that one time. So if you have toddlers, keep them out of the
Right.
reach of the packing boxes. But I
Right.
agree. That's such a good
Yeah.
system to utilize.
I will say there's one more thing I would keep in mind
Hmm.
with furniture, for instance, is making sure you discuss with whoever's assembling the furniture what direction you want the furniture to go. Our movers brought the bunk bed in and assembled it like the wrong way, and we had to like take it apart and move it. And that was just like a whole day of activity that could have been totally avoided. I didn't even think to be like, oh, it should go this way. Because in my mind, it made sense where they were just doing it as simply and easily as possible.
Yeah, I guess like real quick, whenever you get there, like write bed goes here on a piece of paper and tape it on the wall, exactly
Yep.
centered over where you want the bed to be assembled and like the headboard or whatever to go. That would like be an additional
That would
great
be,
suggestion. Good
yes.
job. Yeah, because sometimes like the rooms aren't big enough for a pivot. The
Right.
pivot can't happen. That's awesome. Usually when you do mail forwarding, everything
Hmm.
forwards, but it doesn't. There are important documents that don't forward. Does your planner include like some of those like tax documents and different
Yeah.
important things that they won't forward? They just continue to go to your old address, which is
Yep.
so annoying.
Absolutely. I even recommend reaching out to all of your like finance companies, healthcare company, like something you're going to get from somebody. reach out to them and tell them you're getting a new address, and don't rely on the post office forwarding that mail, because typically there's a lot of really important stuff that will get lost. And usually you have some really important documents coming right away, either right before you leave or right when you get somewhere. And so I
Or when
always
tax season
recommend
happens, that January 31st
100%.
period, the previous year. And it sucks because like you don't always remember what all, if you buy a house in June, like you're not pre-thinking about like what documents you're going to be
No.
receiving on January 31st, but you'd be surprised at how many documents get lost and get sent to your old address.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's worth, if you're able to establish a connection with the previous seller. That kind of opens up risk though, because if the sellers have issues with the house or something, and they're
Right.
contacting you being like, what do I do? So some people don't
Right.
really love having that open line of communication, but for
Well,
some
one
people, it works out
year,
really well.
yeah, one year we got a P.O. box because we weren't even sure where we were moving into. I think we had to like Airbnb for like 6 weeks before our apartment was ready. Just got a P.O. box at the post office. And that was like our go-to mail for like a year and a half until we really got things settled. So that's an option too, just to make sure that you have somewhere to put mail. It's like the housing situation hasn't been settled and whatnot.
No, that totally makes sense. I love it. Well, I want everybody to know how they can find one of these planners. I think that we've established like all
Mhm.
of the things that you haven't thought of and maybe you have thought of, but having it all organized into one place. So for any of you that are super ADHD like me, yet type A, I try to be type A, but then I'm like super ADHD. So like things start off strong and then I'm just like a squirrel and I'm like somewhere
Right.
else. I love checklists. I don't love giant Excel spreadsheets, but give me a single line spreadsheet, those checklists, like I am a checklist ninja. And so your guide is so fabulous, and being able to keep my type A ADHD brain on track. I love it so much. It's so satisfying too. Like, how do they find it? What does it feel like? How can they get one of these?
Yeah. So I have a couple different versions. First of all, I have like the relocation planner, which is you know where you're moving, you've got your house picked out that you're moving to, and you just need help with the move. That's what this planner's for. And then I have the home search and relocation planner. And this is where you're house hunting, you're apartment hunting, and you need to keep all your notes in one place so that you can pick a place that fits you. And again, it has all the check boxes of what you need, what you want to avoid in this planner. And then I also, if you have something that you want to purchase a planner for as a gift, I have a really nice premium version, which is here, and it's divided into all the different sections. But you can find these planners on shop.movemamamove.com. And they're all three available. And these two even come in a digital format. If you're like, I don't need the book, I just want to work from my computer or my phone, you can purchase a digital version as something if you want to keep everything kind of digitally stored and whatnot.
I love that. We should, if all goes well, have all of that linked down below in the episode. If not, you can go to our social media. We are Moving Medicine Partners. You are Move Mama Move. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's move_mama_move.
And Mama is MAMA.
MAM. Yep.
Perfect. So yeah, you can find us both there, and you can find her guides there or go to her website like she mentioned. I definitely find these extraordinarily helpful when I'm working with my clients and staying organized. She still uses her own organizers.
Yeah.
I've used it for myself as well. Definitely want to recommend. And I'm so thankful that you were here today. One, to share this resource as a physician spouse that's gone through this chaos yourself. And then I just think it's so kind of you to gather all the information that you had into one place to provide this resource for other families going through it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Zoe. I'm happy to share and make life a little easier for families that are dealing with the meth life.
And also, just as a side note, for anyone that maybe, I don't know what month this is being released, we're recording this in February, but if you have matched and you're going into your new residency program and you're dealing with the chaos of relocating during this specific phase in your life, the MedCommon, Move Mama Move, and Moving Medicine Partners have collaborated to create a multiple part series on how to move, not just like finding a home or a rental, or not just moving and finding your community. Each one of these organizations kind of has their own little niche that we share a lot of resources and information that should help you be able to establish yourself and your new community wherever you're going. So reach out to us if you want to be included in that or get that resource sent your way. But again, Lisa, thank you so much. And I will talk to you soon, I'm sure.